Episode 29. Today we're talking about bias. Now, what is bias? Bias is the tendency to lean towards or against someone or something in a way that would be considered unfair. Why is it important to talk about it? Why am I going to spend this podcast talking about bias? Or what is this thing? Doesn't matter, come on. Well, because we live in a world that is full of it. Everyone has got their own biases. The news are biased. Just everything you see around you has got some sort of a bias. You have biases, okay? Your brain has certain cognitive biases as well that influence the way you think. That's going to influence the way you make your decisions, and the decisions you make influence your life. So you being unaware of that whole, mini world and reality that exists, the reality of bias, logically would mean that you're going to be affected by it, and most likely it's going to be negative, that effect, okay? Because you're unaware, you don't know what's happening. When you don't know what's happening, it's much easier for you to be swayed left or right and not to use your own thinking, not to be a thinking person, okay? So very important, very important. Why am I deciding to do this? I've been in some arguments, a bit of an overstatement, but I've been in a couple of arguments lately, all different topics, okay? And in every single argument that I go into, or pretty much we could say we've all been in arguments, there's gonna come a point in the argument, unless you're just debating a very intelligent person, there's gonna come a point where the other guy's going, "Are you biased?" Or, "Yeah, of course you're gonna say that," or they're gonna start attacking you personally. This is inevitable. We all know. This just happens. Okay? Instead of the person against you trying to debate your point, the argument that you've presented, they start debating your credibility. And what better way, apart from attacking, apart from saying, "Oh, you're biased, that's your favorite person, or this is this," or, of course, or you think you know everything. Yeah. Very important. Very, very, very important to talk about it. I don't know why this is not but why is this not a more common theme around? I never really see it. I need to go deep and just go very deep into a library to start finding the literature about, okay, cognitive biases. Okay, this is actually interesting. This actually makes a massive difference in my life. I don't know why this should be everywhere. But you know why? If it's everywhere, then all these big companies or very smart people, they're not going to be able to use the same techniques on you that they've been using, because they are aware of these cognitive biases that work, that are at play, and they use it obviously to their advantage. So we need to be aware of them. And we need to see the value of remaining and staying unbiased, thinking clearly. I'm going to try and show you, by talking to you, why is it so important? Why is it so important? Because it's literally anything else that you do, everything that you do in your life is going to be influenced by this, by the way you think. And if your way of thinking is flawed, you're going to struggle one way or another. So let's go into it. Let's just start. First, we're going to obviously cover just some cognitive biases, just so you know, okay, what is this guy talking about? Bias, bias, bias. Okay, yeah, we got it, bias. I've said the word 100 times by now, minute 5. Okay, so we're going to give some examples of just processes that are happening. There's I'm going to give you just whatever kind of comes to me. First, I've read about probably over 100 different cognitive biases. Okay, I'm just gonna go over a couple. Then we're gonna go into how to fix it, how to actually put up a fight against this, how to battle, how to go to battle and win, and win and make something positive from all this, and hopefully be better by the end of this hour, or at least be at the start of a journey of becoming a better thinker. Okay, listen, I'm doing this podcast, I'm saying all this because I've started my own journey. Okay, I would say that I've traveled quite a bit already. Does that make me look overconfident? Maybe. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's all about being aware of it, and it's just very important. It's very important. It's so infuriating. It's so frustrating when I try and have an argument or just discuss any topic, and I just come up against just bias, defense mechanism. I can't even have a meaningful discussion with someone about whatever. I can't, yeah. And it's just, imagine the frustration. And you know what happens? You end up just not really talking. Why would I want to say anything? I can't have a discussion. If we're not agreeing on everything that's being said, then basically the conversation dies. Does that sound fun? Does that sound, wow, exciting? No, it doesn't. It sounds very depressing, doesn't it? Well, it is what it is. Obviously, I can take it, but it is what it is. Anyway, moving on. Let's give some examples, yeah? Before we actually get to the solution. Let's give some examples. So, cognitive biases. There is this thing when I read the book Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman, I did talk about the book in my top 20 books of all time. Anchoring. So what is anchoring? So every time you see an ad, you see an ad online, Instagram or wherever, Facebook, doesn't matter. You see an ad and they give you three different prices, for example, for whatever they're selling you. Very cheap, very expensive, like very, very expensive, and one that's kind of in the middle. Well, and the one in the middle, best value for money, blah, blah. This is called anchoring. So they show you the very cheap one and you're like, that's a bit shit. Then they show you the extremely expensive one. That is going to be like, whoa, that's too expensive. Now your brain is kind of attached to these numbers, if that makes sense. Maybe that's not the best example on my part, but I'm just trying to explain to you the concept. So by them showing you these two, they set like anchors for your brain to think of. And then they show you the third one. Best value for money. Okay, it's not £50, it's not 1,000, but it's like 300. Yeah, 300 seems okay, That's just an example. Now you might say, oh, 300 is low. No, pay attention to the concept, okay? Don't, yeah. Pay attention to the concept, not the details. Oh, that's good. Why? Because you already had this anchor set in your brain of certain price. That's too low. That's way, way too high. But because of that way, way, way too high, now you're like, maybe I can. Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Okay, that's just one example of anchoring. Another example of anchoring, there's been studies in conversations. Okay, when someone wants to make you think about something, let's say you talk about to a salesperson about whatever. He's trying to sell you I don't know, a pen, the Wolf of Wall Street. Before you actually get to the actual price of the pen, He starts talking to you about something very expensive, like very, very expensive, about watches. Okay, or what the watch signifies, blah, blah, blah. This watch, that watch, 50,000 or 100,000. You start thinking about these numbers. And then he goes, but that pen can almost give you the same sense of, of prestige, of status, because it's so special. And it's not as expensive as like a good Omega watch, which is going to be like 10,000. It's only 500. You can get almost the same for just 500. And you're like, yeah, to be honest, yeah. He set the anchor so high by talking about high-end watches, Omega, Rolex, or whatever he was talking about, that now when he tells you for 500 for that pen, for this pen, yeah, 500, and you're like, yeah, 500 is nothing, yeah, because you've been listening to 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 20,000, now 500 is like nothing. Imagine if he was talking to you about something that costs 10 pounds, 10 pounds, 10 pounds. For 10 pounds, you can feed a homeless person for a whole day, You can buy him food that can last him the day. But that's going to be the wrong anchor for him. So he's talking to you about something else. This is anchoring. You have to be aware. Obviously, now, maybe you listen to this and, yeah, but that's obvious. Whoa. Start spotting it more often then. How many times do you see something, anchoring? Anchoring. Yeah, not me, mate. I'm not going to fall for this. Yeah. So this comes into play a lot when we talk about money and about someone selling something. Okay, always try to think for yourself. Is that worth it or not? But it's difficult. It's difficult. Don't fall for anchors that are not beneficial for you. Next, confirmation bias. Probably the biggest one. Confirmation bias is what? Confirmation bias is basically all of us. You have a running story in your head. You're thinking about something and you have this idea of how things work or what is the right way of doing X. Well, when you're learning new things, when you're seeing information, this confirmation bias that's obviously at play behind the scenes is telling you, subconsciously, it's telling you, when you're reading information that doesn't agree with your internal story, it's telling you, that's not really good, man. You start really looking. You're working extra hard to find something wrong with that story because it doesn't align with your one, the one that you're telling to yourself. So your brain is working extra hard to find a flaw in it, to prove it wrong. Yeah, instead of actually, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It's working extra hard. Some people, I'm certain you can think of plenty of people that just, whenever they form an opinion, that's it. They can't even hear anything that goes against it. They can't even hear it. That means that bias is very developed in them. Confirmation bias. Because that story that you're telling yourself, when you're presented with a story that's, contradicting, that creates like friction. Two forces going in the opposite direction in your head. So that's like, the friction is not good for your brain. So your brain naturally does what? Get rid of that friction, mate. No. We're only picking the things that are positive for us, yeah? That confirm the story that I'm telling myself, yeah? Less confirmation bias for you. Think now, please, just have a moment. Think about how many times you've done it. That's very important. You need to be introspective all the time. And then think about how many people can you think of that just wanna push their own agenda and that never seem to question themselves about what they're doing, why, and so on and so forth. Anyway, next. What do I have? The Dunning-Kruger effect. We've talked about this before. I'm only going to be very brief. The Dunning-Kruger effect is what? Is this false sense of confidence that a person gets when he starts learning a new skill. Okay, I start learning a new skill on my day 2, because now I know like infinitely more than what I knew 2 days ago, because 2 days ago I knew 0. So now, even though on a scale of 0 to 100, yeah, I've improved by 2 points. So now I'm a 2 out of 100 at this particular skill or activity. And these 2 points to me, they seem like, Jesus Christ, I've improved infinite. Like, bro. Now I get this false sense of confidence. Yeah, I know, mate. I'm good. So my confidence now is here, but my skill is here. My skill went from here to here, and my confidence went from here to here. And then as you continue getting better, your skill keeps going up, your confidence actually starts coming back down, because you start realizing, oh shit, I don't know anything. I'm actually very far off, I'm far from the top. Yeah. Why was I so confident 1 month ago? I was still shit. I basically still knew nothing. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. False sense of confidence after learning just a little bit. This is very common among people like me. When we start reading a little bit, that's the moment when you start reading a bit, just a little bit more than the ordinary person. You start being like, you look down on them, because you're like, for you just started reading, and you're like, Jesus Christ, I know much more than I knew yesterday. Oh, but everyone else that's not reading, you guys, you know nothing. Yeah, that happened to me, definitely. I'm pretty sure it did. It does happen. It's a thing. And it also happens to people about fighting. That's funny as well. It's just very common. It is what it is. You need to be aware of it. Another example. What's next? Dunning-Kruger confirmation bias. What do I have? Risk aversion, loss aversion, whatever. Think about this. If I told you you have a 50% chance of winning 100 pounds now, or losing 100 pounds, would you take the chance? It's 50-50. What would you say? Most people, the studies suggest, are going to say no. Although the amount of people that say yes and no should be 50-50. Why? Because the chance is 50-50. But then if you look at the actual statistics, like 80% of people would say, no thanks, I'm good. Why? That basically shows that there is the excitement that we feel for winning a certain amount, or getting a reward, are much lower to the fear that we feel of losing something of equal value. Okay, so winning 100 pounds excites you much less than the fear of losing 50 or whatever I said, 100 pounds. Yeah, the fear is much bigger than the excitement. The fear of losing, much bigger than the excitement of winning, when we're talking about the exact same reward. Can you imagine? Is that not interesting? That's super interesting, if you ask me. Yeah, risk aversion. Humans are risk averse. This is a very important thing to know. That's massive, that's insane. Yeah, anyway. False consensus bias. What is the false consensus bias? Well, the false consensus bias is when we make decisions. Yeah, we make decisions, and then we start rationalizing them, and we start false consensus is what we start thinking. Well, yeah, I did this because that's everyone would have done that. So you start rationalizing what you do by thinking that your actions were perfectly acceptable for most people, that they are normal. And because you feel like everyone else would have done it, that gives you like a sense of confidence. You feel better about yourself. You're like, yeah, but everyone would have done that. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Instead of thinking, was that a good thing to do? Was that the right thing? Was that the wrong thing? So you start justifying yourself by, yeah, basically conforming with society. Yeah, everyone would have done that. Yeah, I deserve that. Yeah. Okay? So that gives you that extra little bit of self-confidence, self-esteem. You feel better about yourself. You're not gonna question yourself as hard if you justified it by thinking everyone else would have done it. Then you don't need to question it, because questioning yourself is hard. That's hard work. That's difficult. You know what I mean? That's another one. Any more? What else do I have for you? Do I have any more? How many was that? 4, 5? Don't want to go into too much detail because there's so many books and they explain them so much better than me. Although, to be honest, I feel like I've done an okay job so far of just explaining. That's just how I remember them. That's from the top of my head. But can you imagine? Literally every single one of them, when I read it, I was like, that makes so much sense. Yeah, this is true. And then the more you start thinking about all this, you start realizing and you start remembering decisions that you made that were completely biased because of these things, and you did not realize it. And you're like, I was such a prick. Why would I do that? That was stupid, man. Yeah. Why would I do that and then just say, well, I deserve it because everyone else, yeah, I'd work just as hard. No. Or remember, immediately for me is very evident that Dunning-Kruger effect, the false sense of confidence when you've just started doing something and you've just become that 1% better, but your confidence skyrocketed. Obviously, it's also excitement and everything, but still, come on, that's bad. And then next time you're like, hey, you know what? I remember starting out with this thing and I really didn't know anything. So let me just keep my head down and just keep working instead of start thinking of yourself, yeah, man, yeah, that's a big thing. And also the risk aversion. What does that say about risk, though? I'm quite risk averse, to be honest, as well. I'm very risk averse. Is this good? Is this not? Well, at least I'm aware of it. So I'm gonna consciously try and push myself towards take a bit more, take a bit more risk. It's not that bad. Are you being risk averse at the moment? Or is this just like a good calculation? You know what I mean? We've discussed some of those. Now, when you argue with someone, even when you have almost every conversation, argument seems very aggressive, as if it's like, oh, we're fighting almost. No, argument is pretty much every time you have an opinion that is different from the opinion of the guy that is against you, on the same table or whatever. It's basically like a mini argument. You've got your point of view, he's got his point of view. You don't need to be fighting or trying to convince each other the opposite thing. You can just be talking. But be aware. Okay, am I making any of these? Am I trying to argue his case? Argue the points that he's making, or am I trying to discredit him? Am I trying to attack him personally? Always argue the points. Don't do personal attacks. And then you see, oh, he's attacking me personally. He's not really debating my points. Okay, he's trying to as I mentioned last week, strawman my argument. So make it weak and debate its weak version instead of steelmanning, meaning make my argument as strong as possible and then debate it this way. That's what the best thinkers, the best scientists, that's what they do. That's the approach that you need to have. Okay, if you want to get to the truth, if you don't want to get to the truth, if you want to live in your mini universe of oh, winning and losing an argument is gonna make my day, then stay there. Attack people personally for their opinions when they're trying to argue or whatever. Yeah, but if you're looking for the truth, if you're looking to get better, you don't. I'm really looking forward to like a nice argument with someone that says, I say something and he says the opposite, but then he can actually defend his point and not attack me personally, but rather question me. Why do you think that? And I would be like, well, because of this and this. And he would say, why do you think this? And I would have to explain, because of this and this. And he would say, but this was shown to be blah, 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 untrue now. And I would be like, oh, really? Why? How? And then he would say, well, because blah, blah, blah. And that's how we have discussion. Do you notice my monotone voice, tone of speech? You know what that means? It means it's a very calm discussion. It's not a ha ha, got you, blah, 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 blah. It's not this. It's just almost like exchange of information. That's the best way of discussing things, getting better. Anyway, so I've already gone into the next phase of this podcast, which is battling bias. I was in these arguments, and inevitably we reached, let's say, discussions or conversations. Arguments make it seem as if I've been in a life and death situation, like a battle with someone else, wasting my time trying to convince an idiot of something of my point, which is not the case. When I talk to people or whatever, I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to see how they think. That's very interesting to me. Oh, really? Why? And then when I ask the question why someone gets annoyed, I'm like, okay, 75 IQ, okay, mate. All right, I don't want anything to do with you. That's fine. I start laughing, which is it annoying? Yeah, probably, yeah, but it is what it is. I'd rather laugh than get annoyed or whatever. So, battling bias, okay? Battling bias. What are some things that we can do? Listen, the first thing is I have a hunger for knowledge. Always be learning new things, different topics. You want to have a wide range of knowledge, because if you focus on acquiring knowledge from different areas, sooner or later, that knowledge is going to keep you a bit more grounded, because it prevents you from flying out to somewhere, woohoo, to a different dimension and different galaxy. When you're more grounded, you kind of know stuff. I know a bit about this. I know a bit about this. You're like a generalist. You know a lot about you know a bit about everything and a lot about one thing. Oh, that's like the best way to be, according to many people. Know a bit about everything and a lot about one thing or two things. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so keep acquiring knowledge. Okay, knowledge is what's gonna save you. Knowledge about this, knowledge about that. You don't know how many times the wide-ranging knowledge that I have can deliver that fatal blow to my enemy in the argument or whatever, in the discussion. I would pull out this from there and say, boom, this is why your point is not really valid. Imagine when people try and argue with me, and because naturally, just because I read so much more, I've had, example, there was a person, we don't know what we're talking about, but we both know I've read much more than that person. about all the important topics like philosophy, thinking. You see, I know all these things. Yeah. So naturally, does that make me annoying to argue with? Because I kind of know, I kind of most of the times know what the person is gonna say, and I kind of know what I can see the other person's biases because I'm just much more aware of what's happening, what was at play in the background. That person gets annoyed because it is annoying. Imagine it's like, who do you think you are? You think you're the main character or whatever, or you think you know everything. That's what hits me the most every time is, oh, you think you know everything, and then, oh, it's not about how much you've read, it's about how deep you go. Mate, you, Mr. Deep Intelligence or Mrs. whatever, what have you read? Oh, nothing. What the hell are you talking about? You know? But of course, we need to attack me, try and paint me as a narcissist or something like this, or you're biased, or you think you know everything. Because as soon as someone manages to paint you like that, then your credibility is gone. Okay? Because they're like, are you just trying to defend your point? You just want to win the argument because your ego is not going to be able to take the fact that you don't know everything. Does that sound familiar? Or is it just my own personal experience? Because this is actually my experience. That's just the person I am. This is what happens to me. Maybe I just communicate with people that I shouldn't be communicating with. Maybe. Is this like affecting me negatively? No. I'm not really bothered. It's fine. It's fine. Is it ideal? No. Am I bothered? No. Could it be better? Yes. Do I want it to be better? I would prefer it to be different, but it's not. That's where it is at the minute. Maybe, when you guys keep watching my podcast and like and subscribe and whatever, and it becomes a big podcast, then I can get some smart people to talk to me, and we can have a nice, interesting conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, smart, and then we can talk because you've got like a big podcast. I'll come talk to you, not Mr. Coach Presiam's podcast with 74 subscribers and 50 views. you know so yeah, in the future I'll get there. I'll be talking to smart people. I'm not gonna be here forever talking to morons. How self-righteous of me. Anyway, I think I've my point of view is obvious. Okay, is it a humble one? It depends how you want to look at it. If you want to look at it of, oh, this guy's a prick, he really thinks that he knows everything. Or if you want to look at it, okay, this guy, he's got some knowledge and is evident. He's looking to acquire more knowledge and he keeps reading. Okay. And he actually keeps he's communicating the knowledge that he acquires. Okay. He's actually thinking through that. So what does that mean? That means he's actually understanding it. I'm internalizing the things that I read. I don't just read for the sake of, oh yeah, I've read 250 books, mate. How many have you read? Oh, 10? 10, little buddy? Well, I'm much smarter than. No, I try to read. If I don't get it, read again. Unfortunately, I've done that. I explained this. I read one book 4 times in a row because I didn't get it the first 3. On the 4th one, I got it like 25%. And I've left it. I'll read it again maybe in a year or 2 when I have a bit more time. 4 times I went back because I didn't get anything. And I'm like, no, I'm not becoming this. I'm not becoming this guy that just reads books for the sake of, accumulating numbers. That's not it. So anyway, what was I saying before I went on this side quest rant? I was saying people are gonna come to you in arguments, try and discredit you. Don't fall for this. Stay away from it. If you see someone is like that, don't engage. Keep learning. Keep learning, keep acquiring knowledge. Keep acquiring knowledge, because this knowledge, as I said, is going to keep you grounded. The more you read, the more knowledge you acquire. That keeps you grounded. You start creating a more accurate representation of what the world is, how the world works, how things happen around you. You start being aware of things, whether it's how the world works or how your internal world works, okay? Whether it's of how the planets move or how the economy works, yeah, or your own mental cognitive biases. Doesn't matter. Keep learning, keep adding stuff. Then you start see the connections. You start making connections. So you know what? There's parallels between this and this. There's parallels between this and this. And the smarter you get, the closer you get to the top of your field or whatever. The true innovators are the ones that can see different parallels between across disciplines. Think about it. How many times, oh, I got this guy, he got inspiration from this. Something completely different, you know? Oh, Isaac Newton, the apple fell from the tree and hit him on his head, and he came up with his theory of gravity. The apple hit him. It wasn't a law of physics that hit him on the head. It was an apple. He was outside an apple. You see? And he had this idea. Where did the idea come from? It came from something else. That's not the best example, but you get my point. The point is, across disciplines, know things across disciplines. Then you'll be like, okay, can I maybe pull that piece of knowledge that I have here about this? Can it be applied to this other field? How can it be applied? Then you start thinking. That's how creativity works. That's how innovation works as well. This is going to be good for you. And again, wide-ranging knowledge. Wide-ranging knowledge is going to keep you more in the center, because if it's not wide-ranging, you naturally, because of that confirmation bias, tend to go, as you start from the center, you start acquiring knowledge here, and you start doing this, and you start going in one direction. Okay? That's why we get like far left, far right, you know, in terms of politics. Do I talk about politics? No, because politics is that's just a complete failure of society. Politics. How from Socrates and Plato we came to politics and to corruption all over the place. That's shocking. Hopefully, though, how are we gonna overcome this? How are we gonna make this better? Well, the only change can happen. Is that pen annoying? Sorry if it is. The only change can come from the individual, from the level of the individual. I start changing myself. I'm gonna try and I keep trying to get better as a person. I try and affect positively the people around me so they can maybe go on that journey. They want to try and get better as a person as well. So individually, everyone should look within and go, you know what, that's good, that's not good. Am I trying to get better? Am I trying to think better? Okay? Or am I just guided by my own conscious, unconscious, whatever biases? Bias is important. And yeah, and so on. And you start going, whoop, start going far this way, this way, this way. And all of a sudden, you know, for a person like whatever, the people that are at the top of the food chain in terms of power, think about, is there exit for it? There is no exit for them. Once you go deep into that game of power, there is no exiting. You're forced to play it. You're literally forced to play it. Because if you decide I'm not playing anymore, what's going to happen? Well, you know what might happen? That obviously that upper level of power. Well, the only way out is, you know, by exiting this existence that we occupy. You go to a different dimension, which is not among the living, if I could put it that way. Next, the next thing to say, wide-ranging knowledge. Next thing is being a moral and principled person. If you're not, if you don't have certain values, morals, and principles. Principle, my favorite word, principle. If you don't stick to your principles, if you don't find your principles that you're going to be loyal to and that you're going to follow, whatever it is, fairness, justice, loyalty, honesty, justice, respect, whatever, empathy, whatever your principles are, as long as they're good. If you don't see the value in your principles, which we've talked about their value on a lot of these podcasts, maybe we go into more detail in a future one. If you don't see the value in this, then you're not going to see the value of being unbiased. Why? Because sometimes being unbiased, okay, it's not gonna be the best for you. Sometimes, in some cases, it's easier for you to close your eyes. I kind of know that this is probably not the best thing to do, but anyway, I didn't notice, I didn't notice. Or, mate, if I support this guy, if I attach myself to this guy, that's gonna have, good things are gonna happen for me, maybe financially or whatever. But if I support this guy who is actually doing the right thing, I might not win anything back. And you're like, I'm gonna lean towards this guy. As we said, bias, not just cognitive biases, but just bias in general, prejudice. Is it fair to support this guy? This guy is not really doing the best things, morally or whatever. You go and attach yourself to him because oh, if I do, I'm gonna benefit. But if I'm gonna benefit in terms of externally, but internally I've sacrificed my values. Don't be like that. And yeah, you have to see the value of, you have to have these principles, you have to stick by them. Otherwise society is going to keep going the way it's going. Politics are still going to be corrupt, politicians are going to be corrupt, everything is just, nothing is going to get any better because everyone is going to fold at a certain point. Yeah, morals, it doesn't look flashy. It's not that only it's something for you, it's something personal, only deep down whether what you're doing is right or wrong, and your motives, only you. So yeah, and then, so we've said wide ranging knowledge, a set of moral principles that you keep above everything. Okay, this is what is going to keep you here, and you're not going to start developing these different beliefs that are bad, or start having a blind spot towards something, not towards something, but certain area. Look the other way, that's uncomfortable there. Don't need to pay attention to this is wrong, that's bad. How do we do that? What else? Some techniques. These are more so the strategies, strategic thinking, acquire knowledge, find and stick to a set of moral principles that lead you in life and guide you. What about some techniques? Techniques. That word, techniques. Well, ask questions. Ask questions. We go back to that moment of, arguments. We're arguing, or we're not arguing. Ask questions. Ask the other person questions. Instead of lecturing. Ask questions. Whether you know the answer or not, just ask the question. See what the other guy says. Okay? And especially when you don't know the answer, just ask a question. The more questions you ask, the better for you overall. Just keep asking questions. Keep asking questions. Keep getting better. Keep developing the skill of asking questions. This is, in science, is pretty much, that's the most important thing, is asking the right question. This is the foundation of all progress, asking the right questions. So ask questions. This is one of the most important skills that you're going to develop, is asking yourself the right questions. And not just yourself, everyone else. When you're solving a problem, to solve it, are you actually asking the right question, or are you looking for something that's irrelevant? When you're talking to someone, ask the question. That's what Socrates was doing. Socrates was going around asking questions, and by questioning them, they themselves realize, oh, I'm wrong. Oh, I'm saying it's nonsense. Oh, I'm just an idiot. Yeah, that's why people didn't like him. But he was just asking them. He wasn't going around like lecturing them. He was just asking them questions. They were exposing themselves. Ask questions. And then, after asking questions, what is the next thing? What is the next thing? Well, if you are if you get asked a question, if you are asked, if someone asks you a question, we mixed up here. I think the light is getting to me. Finding the strength of character and the honesty of saying, I don't know. When you don't know the answer, say, I don't know. We all need some examples. Examples are always good. You know where I saw my examples of people saying, I don't know? In physics. In religion, you're not going to find that word, I don't know. In most other books, you're not really going to see, I don't know. We know where you see the most in physics. Physicists are one of the most honest people. You know what? Let's change this statement to physics is one of the more honest fields. Physics, mathematics, one of the more honest fields. Why? Because it's essentially more, what's the word? More to do with numbers. So it's more honest, more objective, or as objective as it gets in this reality. Numbers in physics, they just say, I don't know. They ask them, so what happened before the Big Bang? The Big Bang. Brian Cox, or Stephen Hawking, or whoever. What was this guy's name? Anyway, I can't think of his name. I was going to say Robert Greene, which Robert Greene is someone else. They just go, well, we don't know. The honesty. These guys, they have like 150, 160 IQ. They're certified geniuses. They're modest enough and honest to say, I don't know. If they are, you should be as well. I don't know. When you don't know, you don't know. And also, it makes you more likable as well. Let's think about the more practical. Saying I don't know makes you seem like less of a dickhead or whatever. Like, oh, this guy, finally. But if someone is already turned against you and they ask you something, you know what, I actually don't know, they're going to be like, they're going to use that against you. So just stay away from idiots in general. That's the general advice. You should know that. I shouldn't have to say that, but I don't know. See the value in saying I don't know. Find the courage, find the honesty within yourself and say it when you don't know something. or say, no, I don't know, I need to read about this, and I need to check. I say that all the time to myself though. Why? Well, because I don't get too many people to ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, which is bad. Does that say a lot about me or about the other person? Maybe a bit of both, but it's probably more about the other person. They're just not asking me questions that are challenging enough. And that makes me seem as if I know everything, whereas in reality, they just ask loaded questions or just questions that are too simple. But it is what it is. If there is no other people, just say, I don't know, to yourself. Be aware of what you don't know. This is the smart person. That's what the smart person does. He's aware. I'm at least aware of the things I don't know. I'm aware of my inadequacies. And if I'm aware of them, I can address them. I can address them. I know there is more knowledge to be found, even, but not more knowledge for me to, more things for me to learn. I know it, and that's why I'm going to keep going. I'm not under the impression that I know everything, although I've read so much. There is still so much more to learn, because that Dunning-Kruger effect has kind of run its course. You know, my unrealistic confidence has disappeared. The more I read, the more I'm like, I need to read this, I need to read this, I need to read this. At any given point, I'm like 50 books that I have to read. I have to read them. It's important, but I can only read one at a time. So yeah, but I keep saying, I don't know this, I don't know that. That's something that I need to learn. This is something that I need to learn. And yeah, just keep going and keep going. And I keep trying to. It's like, you know what, how you can imagine it. Imagine you're looking at reality and you have in the picture that you're seeing, imagine you're looking at reality. Your experience of reality is like a screen. And your screen is only like, the resolution is like 248 by 248 or whatever that low resolution was. The more knowledge you acquire, the more things you learn. What you're trying to do is you're trying to up that resolution. You know, you want to improve the graphics. You want to get to a point where it's like 4K. It's crystal clear. You can see everything. That's what you're doing when you're acquiring knowledge. Think about it this way. I think it's helpful. You have this picture of reality that you've got in your head. Imagine you're looking at the picture. Imagine you're looking at a TV. And the TV is horrible. It's like from the 60s. Black and white even. 248 by 248 or whatever. And as you keep reading, now all of a sudden there is color. You keep reading, all of a sudden the TV is a bit bigger. You can see more, you know. It's not, the frame is not 4 by 3, 16 by 9 or whatever it's called. You keep reading. Oh, we got to HD, you know. Ultra HD, you know, 4K, 8K, and whatever comes after. But you keep getting a better rendition of the picture until you can see clearly. And then when you can see clearly, what's next? I don't know. Keep expanding. Keep expanding. Don't just look at the TV. Get don't know. Go to the cinema. Get a bigger screen. See more. And it's a never-ending process. It's a never-ending process of getting better and moving forward in the right direction. And this podcast was about doing it in an unbiased manner, remaining in the center as much as humanly possible, because we need people like this. We need more people like this. People that can actually present their point of view, not be swayed, be aware of their own faults in terms of thinking and whatever else. and people that are hungry to get better and to want to improve, not people that are stuck, and that's rubbish. No, I know, you know who I am. People, idiots like this. Yeah, that's today's podcast. Whoa, 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 whoa. We don't need this. We don't need this anymore. We need intelligence, smart people that can talk. I don't need this. I don't need to say that though. That's obvious. That's obvious. So forget about the last 1 minute of the podcast. But I'm finishing here because I need to go and watch the boxing. That's already started. So I'll be back next week, and thanks for watching, listening, and whoever it is. And we move forward and we get better. And that's it. Cognitive biases. Be aware. Be aware. The Art of Thinking Clearly. Check out this book as well. Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. That's essential reading for every person ever that wants to be considered at least a little bit, smart or knowledgeable or whatever. You have to read that book. It's so important. Yeah. If you haven't seen the podcast about my book, about my top 20 books, see the podcast. See that episode 27, I think it was. That's a strong episode. That's a really strong episode. See the books, all these books, life-changing. They are life-changing. I'm not joking. And yeah, that's it. I'm done, and I'll be back next week. See you later.